Good morning. How are you doing today, Romy?
I am really well. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
I was so excited I've been following your work for a while. So I was like, when you said yes, I was like, oh, this is amazing. So thank you. So
I know it's been a crazy year. It's been such a crazy year. And when I got your email, I was like, I don't have time. I don't have time, but then I'm some time.
thank you. But I wanted to ask, my podcast is called Naughty Bites. What's your guilty pleasure?
See, do you know what? I call myself a chef first before anything else. As a writer, an author, a broadcaster comes all followed later because of my chef, as a chef. So when until now, when I'm cooking, I'm always doing supper clubs, and when I had the restaurant, working so many long hours, I used to look forward for Sundays. Sundays like when I growing up, it was a paratha day for my parents when I was going with them. Growing up when I came here as well. But now for me, cheese and toast with a cup of chai, with rose harissa is my guilty pleasure. It's all. I mean, people say, "Oh, really? Chocolate?" No, no, no. First thing is cheese. I think what you crave for is something really comforting, warm, quick. You don't want to wait there for ages. And a cup of chai that just solves every problem.
And so does the cheese. Cheese is so warming and oozy that
Yeah.
it's amazing.
And it has to be done it right. People layer it, but I really grate my cheese, and I think
Oh.
when you grate your cheese, you put lots more on it, and then it becomes it
And
becomes more nicer.
you can squash it and compact it, so it's
Yes,
amazing.
yes,
Always. So
yeah.
I want to talk about your eagerly awaited cookbook on the Himalayan Trail. You've explored the food of northernmost India, especially Kashmir and Ladakh, where the Himalayan mountains surround you and are home to cuisine that's distinctly different from other southern regions. Can you tell me more about the history and your travels?
So I would never have become a food writer or a travel writer if Mina Holland, who's the Guardian editor, in 2014, she gave me an opportunity to be a cook resident. So the cook residence used to write for a whole month.
Mhm.
And then every week there was it was for every week you would write something that would have been different things, different subjects, and you would write surrounded around what you did and what's going on in your life. So I wrote that, and she made, for me, I never thought of myself as a writer. So she said, no, you can write, everybody can write. And then came Alan Jenkins, who said, everyone can write a little piece of what you've noticed, of something's happened in a restaurant or in your life, and a little like a line in your diary. Um, that will help you. That creates the story, that makes the story. And I think that kind of led to me as a recipe writing is very different from writing a book or writing a travel log around travel and food is completely different. So if people can understand that, then you can put yourself in those categories. I think that's what Mina did for me. And then in 2016 came an opportunity by Suitcase Magazine to travel to Ladakh, and that opportunity kind of led to many other things with them. I went travel around with them to different parts of India. They sent me, but then came an opportunity to write for New York Times. So I did a Himalayan trail, but the Himachal bit, which is Shimla and all the Manali, and then I went on a trail with my father for 7 days. Actually, 10 days. We went into different cities in Himachal, and it was amazing because I've never been to those places. I've been to some, but I had never been to the places I would ever thought of going. And understanding of the millet, understanding of their culture, their rituals, their food, because it's very different again. And also, my husband used to travel when he was in university in India on his scooter to Ladakh and, Kashmir and things like that. So it kind of, and I grew up watching Bollywood films, and everybody who's Indian will understand, they will watch. So I think that led to this book. Many other things led to this book that actually I've done this and I really want to write about it. I wanted to take my mom, but sadly in 2019 she passed away. So I think back of my mind was always, um, I want to kind of celebrate India in a very different line. That Indian food is not just Indian. It's very regional. We have different languages. We speak, very different languages. We look different. We fight with each other. We can't, we love each other. So it's a different continent. It's really, really different from one another. So I think the cultures, the rituals, even wearing clothes are different.
Mhm.
So everything, every state, if you go, that a lot of people don't understand that not only the food, the way of stitching, the way of, our cultures and the way of embroidery is different.
Yeah.
Every state has a very different embroidery, a very different culture, as in art. So
Yeah.
it's arts and food is always related. Whether it's music, whether it's film, whether it's food, it's all connected together. So I think I wanted to showcase. I want to travel to India in different parts and write the books, yes, but I wanted to start from the top of India, and which
Mhm.
my love affair of Bollywood films as a young child has always been there. I wanted to go there, experience that, but in order to do that, you have to connect with the people. You have to, I think the chefing industry, the hospitality industry is very welcoming.
Mhm.
We connect very quickly. Oh, I know this person. I know. So that's how it happened. Pratik and many other people from Jaipur Literary Festival, they connected me with different people. So I connected with them before I even started, I started researching before even going there. So I traveled, when the doors were open, you could travel to during the time of pandemic. So I did that, follow all the protocols through the government and, British High Commission. So I think meeting that people for many times and then writing and then going to do a shoot, um, and those unknown parts for me. Those are not parts that I know. They were unknown parts. And when you hear about Kashmir years ago, it was all about the beauty, the people, the food. But then it came the time when it's all about terrorism and it's all about unsettling times there. But for you and me, people like you and me, don't want to fight.
Yeah.
There are people of certain people who want to do that, but the people were so welcoming and they opened their doors to me. I sat down with them. I listened to the stories with them. I shared their stories. So it's their recipes, it's their stories and how I made it. And they were so understanding and happy that I wanted to do this.
Mhm.
But why I want to do this because I wanted to share that Kashmir and Ladakh, people as such, and I wanted to share it to the wider audience, to people who don't know about the cuisine. And it is such a different cuisine in a sense that it's very broth based and they're very, very, self-sufficient in a sense that when it's summer, they'll dry all the vegetables when it is in abundance. They know the winters are going to be very harsh. So they then use those vegetables in their food during winter times, the dried ones. Or, they are very sufficient in almonds, walnuts, apple.
Yeah.
There's so many, chestnut flour, which I didn't know. They do this smoked trout, which I didn't know,
Oh my
lotus salmon.
goodness.
So, and then, going to this floating market 4 o'clock in the morning with this, you need guts to do that. A
Yeah.
woman, and now I'm a UK citizen, to have the guts to be able to do 4 o'clock in the morning, everybody's sleeping. Not many people would take those chances. And I did because I just want to meet the real people. And so, I didn't do once, I did 3 times. So then traveling all the different places in Kashmir, not just staying in one place, going to the old city and meeting the vazas, who
Mhm.
make the
Yeah.
beautiful feast called vazman. So I think you have to, whether it's the chef in you or a journalist in you or a food writer in you, you need to talk to these people and you need to talk to the people that on the same level, in the same page in order to tell the stories. I think I took that, and I'm so proud of this book. Obviously, I'm very proud of Zaika, which was my first ever book. So many publishers refused me. After 10 years, I got a big deal, and Zaika made me an author. And it will always be very close to my heart. But Himalayan Trail is something very different because there's so many essays I had to write. I think
Mhm.
if that is what I wanted to say to people that there is someone who will help you in that situation and push you. that you can do that. You'll be able to do. I think if Mina didn't do that to me, I don't think I will be a writer today.
But that's amazing. It's amazing how sometimes in life someone accidentally or will come into your life and that person will have changed it and
They
given
do.
you
They do.
it's amazing. And it's those people that are worth keeping in your life because
Oh
it's
yeah.
always it's
I
amazing.
I think the power of social media, the power of the journalists, the power of the editors, is immense, and you should always acknowledge the people that have actually helped you in your career, and don't forget that you've suddenly become a name and you don't want to know them. I think I will never ever forget Mina in my life.
That's beautiful. You know, as you were talking, I think it was wonderful that you touched upon one thing that I loved was that Indian food is regional. Every
Yeah,
region is different. And when you say to someone in the Western world, oh, Indian food, oh, it's a curry, and you're like, no, like there are, different aspects in different regions that are specific to that, place. And I think Italy is well marketed in highlighting regional food.
yeah.
And, it's everyone knows Bologna, tortellini,
Mm.
you know, lemons from the south. So I think it's fantastic that you've written this book and highlighting something so specific from the northernmost part of India. Um,
Absolutely, I think it's so important to do that. But also, I wanted to say that if just because you're Indian doesn't mean you know A to Z about India. You don't know A to Z about Indian cuisine. So this is what I wouldn't say a fight when somebody sits on social media and claim themselves as they know everything about Indian cuisine is absolutely bonkers, because they live in one state. They might have gone to different states and on travels. Just because you're Indian doesn't mean you know
yeah,
everything about
it's
India. So
impossible. Impossible.
I mean, this is why I'm different in a sense, is because I got the opportunity. If I didn't have the opportunity with Suitcase Magazine, with Sunday Times or Telegraph or New York Times, I wouldn't have been able to do this. I
Mhm.
wouldn't have been, or the Guardian, as I recently wrote about butter chicken. So until and unless you research, you meet these people, you go to those states, you meet the tribes. When I went to Andaman Nicobar Island with Suitcase Magazine, you met all these people. You came to know all these things. You cannot just write that I am Indian. I know everything about India. I'm like, absolutely no. You don't know about India. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know anything about India. This is how it's learning for me. I'm learning along
yeah.
that journey,
But you're
you know?
sharing the stories, and I think that's what's beautiful about the book. And I think, in your books, introductions and snippets of your essays, you're highlighting main points of the story. um what do you want people, your readers to know? Like in particular, you discuss ingredients, geography of Kashmir. Seeing how your book is regional, it makes it stand out in terms, stand out from a crowd in terms of reading, because although it's a cookbook, it's a story, it's like a memoir of other
Yeah.
people's stories. What's the one key message you want people to know from reading your book?
I think for me, the saffron chapter is really important to me. I think Kashmiri saffron is still the best saffron in the world. So when I was growing up, I write that my grandma I knew what saffron is, how it looked like, in our Punjabi, mithi chawal, which are like sweet, rice, which we make in the celebrations. Mostly people will put color or they will put turmeric,
Mm.
but my grandma always had little saffron in this little dabbi, and then in a Muslim class kept it safe. That was like so valuable to them, and I saw it for the first time, what it looks like, what saffron, how it smells. And she told me off because I was picking up too much, and she said, "This is gold." Gold. So so understanding that, and then realizing, oh, actually, my dadi told me that, and my nani and my dadis were very different. Again, coming from Punjab, but they were very different in their cooking. They were so different in their dialects. They spoke really different Punjabi as a dialect, I would say, and cooked very differently. So I think within region, in a state, you would find in different houses and different Parts of Punjab will cook very differently. So I think that I wanted people to understand why saffron is so amazing saffron in Kashmir. And it's just the 3 weeks of that bloom. You have to be very quick and going, and you take those flowers, you meet the producers. It's so time consuming. It's so, it takes a long time to understand even. And then until you go and meet those farmers, the producers, the people who are trying to make sure the outside saffron doesn't come out, until you meet these people, you don't understand how the soil is different, because the soil is very different. Because of the soil, the mountains, the landscape, everything is different. That's why the the um, the saffron has the earthy, the sweetness, the flora is completely different from the saffron from other parts of the world. So I think you have to understand. Until I could have just sat here and interviewed somebody, that doesn't mean you can't feel the, see, look of the soil, why it is like that. For me, um, understanding that saffron is going to be fields and fields look like tulips, but it's not like that. It's completely different. So I think also they can't grow anything else on it. If they grow something else, then the saffron won't. So all that understanding, I think people need to understand. And then there is the cockscomb flower, why they use the extract from it, and then the Kashmiri chilies. Understanding of different chilies used in India is very important. Why it's the warmth, it's the color that they, gives in the food, and then also understanding that they don't use onions, ginger, garlic in many things. They use a lot of ground things. And then there is a cuisine of the Bakarwals, which are the shepherds, and then the Kashmiri Pandits and the Kashmiri. I think that until you go and meet these people, and for me to be able to write that and to introduce those things to people was very, very important, because it wasn't my story to tell. Because I listened to them. They wanted to share that, and I needed to be very clear about it, and needed to make sure I wrote what they said in a very beautiful manner that is close to my heart. I can't be another writer. I have to be a writer who I am. So you have to have the love. You have to have that passion. You have to have that in you to give back to the people who just opened those doors to you. So I think that I wanted to really share about that. Everybody thinks it's all about butter chicken. It's all about chicken tikka masala, or it's about moili, or anything. So I wanted to kind of really showcase that Ladakh again. If you go there, are the dumplings, there are pasta, then there are different kinds of pasta shapes they make. And also recently, somebody wrote to me on Instagram, my DM. Sometimes I think, why, oh why? How could you call momos when it is actually from Nepal, without understanding that actually momos, we can go back where it's come from China, and going to Nepal. And this guy was really annoyed with me that it's the food of Nepal, and I'm trying to, trying to talk about, take the food from Nepal. And I should, I was like, um, I don't think I've done anything wrong. So I was have to be very clear that, the people who I met and the way I cooked with them. So I think, so that was very, when people like say things like that, people can't, until, what I meant to say is, if you've researched, you met these people and that's what they said to you, this is what it is. And you can't just sit on online and research about it, because the momo is altered in many translations. They have, if you go back and see, it's a Tibetan language with how it traveled, and with fundamental things, from basic learnings in class to gathered from Ladakhi, or a voiding in Ladakhi, which is in the grammar. So I think it kind of sums up that food travels. It travels to different places, and that's how they call. Just because it's called momos in all over India because of them, it doesn't mean that it's from there. It can travel from different parts. So I think that's what I want people to know, that through travel, through the trade routes, like Yarkand Palau has actually come from China, from Yarkand, through different routes. Of Middle Eastern has come to Kashmir through various ways, all the wazas, the craftsmen, the traders, and the bakery culture. And again, the bakery culture is huge there. And also the bakery culture is combination of Middle Eastern ways they would do, and then the British culture, the cakes and all these things is from British. So I
Yeah.
think all that, I can't, I mean, I cannot, I wish I could have done a travel program with it to make people understand that there are so many layers to Kashmiri food, not just Kashmiri, the Ladakhi food, the food of that region I think it's really, I want people to understand that.
I think you've hit on a note there. Like, when you get these sort of messages from people, although it's unkind, people need to understand that if you look throughout history, food is cross-cultural. You'll take things and you make things. Everything kind of, chilies, potatoes, tomatoes came to India, you know,
Mm.
but wheat came to, we had millet
Yes.
generally in history, and then wheat came. So people need to realize as well, food is cross-cultural. You take it and adapt it, acclimatize to it, and make it
Mm-hmm.
your own. And I think,
Absolutely, absolutely. This is why I think um, travel, I think, makes you knowledgeable. So through travels, you can understand how food has traveled and how food has gone through Silk Route or trade routes or whatever you can say, or even the GT Road, which is the Grand Trunk Road of India, and how it travels from one place to another. So I think for me, even writing something about butter chicken, I had to go to India. I had to go and take my dad for 10 different places. I had to go with my friend. I had to go with my chef mentor and his kids to understand different. You can't, for me, I can make a killer butter chicken, but be able to write the history about it, how it started and where you can find the best and all that. You have to be different. You cannot be the same. I don't want a cookbook every 6 months. I don't want a cookbook every 1 year. I don't want a cookbook just because you're an author and you can write and the publishers want to take a chance. I want to be very different. You have to have a niche in the market. You have to be different from one another. You cannot be the same. So I think that is why I would say I'm very, very different from one another is that I want to travel and I want to write about those. I just don't want to write my Punjabi cuisine, or I grew up in Bengali cuisine, or most of my friends were from Bihar. So I don't want to just talk about that. I want to talk about really India. I think people have started to. I think I kind of put the benchmark.
yeah, tick, you've done it.
And people are following it, and the publishers want everyone to write the regional food.
Definitely. But I think for me, your book is a grab your attention kind of book. You look at what goes on in the world of Kashmiri and Ladakhi food. The writing for me is super powerful. I've read some of your like snippets, but when you were there, had your writing been while you were cooking or while you were like capturing the moment in that instant? So, oh my God, okay, so you've written this, or you heard this. Is that your process of capturing the stories?
So I'm very different. For me, I don't record anything. Even on iPhones, I don't record. I take my notebook. I really want to write the name of the person correctly. So I don't make a mistake that I've written somebody's name wrong. But rest, I don't write anything because I want to listen to the person. I don't want to put this, and the moment you're recording a phone or through some dictaphone or whatever, I think the language body changes of that person. The person becomes more, oh, this is recording or they're filming me. So I am very different. So I kind of make sure nothing like that. Forget about anything, just the name. That's it. I go back after listening to them, what they've done. I think I have a photographic memory. So I'm so grateful to God. Photographic, I'm dyslexic, but with a very good photographic memory. So I really honestly know what, at the moment I walk in the door, I know what that person is wearing, what the person is doing. So I kind of do that. After I have finished, I will then take the photos for me to just remember where that was, what I did with that person in my iPhone, and the photographer, the filmmaker is there. For me, that is like that, how I process it and how I write it. I'll come back in my and also I sometimes don't write on the computer. I'll write that in my notepad while because you have to understand you're traveling 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, all those places are far away. So in that time, I don't want to waste in the car. So in that time, I will write everything down.
Fantastic.
So, and then I will come and put down my computer. And then it goes like that because I mean, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but that's how I like doing it, and it works for me. You
Brilliant.
know.
I think that's so good. Like, so let's go back to where it all started. What has changed in your life since you opened two restaurants, published two cookbooks, and is the identity of food something you're exploring or raising awareness about, which you've already answered a part of already? So tell me more
So
about that.
yes, it's yes, like we talked about the regional food, and but at the same time, I didn't just want to serve butter chicken or dal makhni or paneer and things like that. I live in this country. This is my homeland now. I've come from a very rich country. Absolutely, I go back to my roots when you're creating my recipes. Um, I I loved street food. So my everything in my restaurant was based on the street food, on the flavors of the street food. Like if we sold octopus, it had to be the punch foreign, which was from Bengal, and then the tamarind, and then chaat masala, whatever I did would work. I poached it with spices, and then it would, it just, people loved it. Or if I'm doing a crab patty that will have, you know, the various spice blends we would make in the restaurant. But going back to my roots, there was always going to be a mango powder, or there's going to be some kind of tamarind in there. But I think street food is so core in people who are born in India, because the street food is so different from one state to another. So I think the street food flavors are so, how would I say, it's more, you want to go back to it. Once you eat, that goes in your tongue.
Moorish. It's
Yes, you
Moorish.
just want to keep on eating and keep on eating it. So I think, and also when I was growing up, money was very tight, and all my friends, and my friends' family, all the people we knew, that our fathers worked in a steel plant. They worked really hard. Their priority, either it was my friend's parents or my parents, the priority for each parent was to give education. Or we not very educated, or we didn't go to English medium. We want our priorities to make sure kids go to private schools and go to English medium schools. I think that was very core filled with us. But the street food was so cheap. So all our friends, with our pocket money, would put on a table, and we knew each day what we could eat. A samosa or a chaat, or we could share and eat that. And then when you're young, there's no care that if she's a Muslim or she's a Sikh or she's a Hindu, you could eat on the same plate. There was no, there was, we would, the same plate, we're eating all different cultures. We never thought about that. That's what I think when you have that love, and then you're creating food, you remember those things, and then I think it naturally becomes, and you can't be stigmatized in the sense that you can't call yourself Indian chef and you don't want to be creative. You have to be creative. You cannot, like I'm labeled as an Indian chef. People think all I do cook is Indian food. I don't just cook Indian food. I cook Thai food, Chinese food, Mexican, or really good British food. So I think people need to understand, editors, I think they've started to understand that. You can't put somebody in one box and think if you're on TV, you're just going to do Indian food. And how, for sometimes, people like male chefs or female chefs who are white allowed to make Indian food, but we are not allowed to make any other food. So that's what you are boxed into. But I didn't want to box into that. If you're making a roast, yes, it's going to be a roast, but it's going to have a different twist to it. But I just think you have to have that. If you don't have that, I think that's why Michelin heard about me, and then they came to my restaurant. So I think that you have to be very different. Yes, you want to have that butter chicken, which is going to sell loads, 20 kilos of that. But you need to be different. Your starters need to be different. You need to be different. I think your creation process could be different. Teaching all my people who worked in my restaurants were all from Thornbury, around here. I didn't want to wait for someone from India to come and cook. It's not because I didn't want that. It's just the process is so longer. Why not train the people I live here with? Why not I train some kitchen porter to be my sous chef and make the tamarind for me? People would say to me, You can buy tamarind and cash and carry. Why are you making it? So making is the best thing.
Best
You're
thing.
teaching is understanding what goes into it. I was cooking other day in Fortune and Masons, and one of the chefs was like, "Why are you making the tomatoes?" He was an Indian chef. Oh, we should have just bought it. I just looked at him. How am I different then? How am I different if I'm going to buy things and then make it's going to save us time because it's the filling, it's the pastry, it's the rolling it and then frying it. There are four different processes. So I can't be like others. I have to be different. I'm self-taught. If I'm not different, tomorrow somebody else will come and say
Do
I'm
it.
much better. So
Mm.
to have your place, you've got to be different. You've got to have that knowledge. And also, you've got to understand that you're still learning. For me, I'm still learning. I don't know anything about A to Z about India or Indian cuisine. So I'm still learning. That's, I think, what showed in my restaurant
And I
and as
think
a
as
writer.
well, I think you're quite mindful, and I think it's important to be mindful. And I think once you stop learning, and that's it. Like you're never going to progress, or you're never going to learn something new. And I think the whole point of cooking or experience something new is just opening your
Even,
mind.
even like,
You know,
we have this mint and coriander chutney. I did not want to go to wait for mangoes to come and the raw mangoes to put in the chutney. That's what in India, when the mango season is, then we would add the raw mangoes. Um, but how can I make it? How can I make it without thinking? So you have to open your box and think. Actually, this green apple, not the cooking apple, the eating apple, is sweet and sour.
mm,
I can put that in and it will work. Don't peel the skin off. It'll just work. So I think that followed. So many chefs started copying that, which is great. If you can inspire somebody, of course do it.
fantastic.
Like lime, I know works much, much better in Indian food. The lemons work, with something. Or tamarind or pomegranate. In Punjabi cuisine, we use a lot of ground pomegranate. When my sisters in laws are from Lucknow, they add a lot of mango powder in their cooking. It's an experience that you keep on learning all these things. And then avocado chutney, which is still a huge, and if you use huge in my restaurant. So I think you've got to be different. You can't just become like, oh, I don't want to do. I just in India we don't do this. No, you've got to understand the palates of British people or any other people that you're walking through those doors that will work.
Definitely. But can you tell me how Kashmiri and Ladakhi food is identified in the UK? And do you think many people know about it?
Not really. But the thing is, I get lots of emails, lovely emails. But recently, um, I was on television on James Martin, and I made the haq, which is actually cooked with collard greens. So I did write in the book in Kashmir, it's cooked with collard greens. Here, you can't easily find collard greens in supermarkets. There are sometimes you can go to a shop, you will be able to find it. But farmers market or things like that. But the thing is, then I had to give an option to people that actually you can cook with spinach, but make sure it's long spinach. And even if you're cooking with baby spinach, it won't have the same taste, but make sure cooking process is less. So we have to. That's what I did, and I got little criticism saying, "Oh, we don't cook it like that." So the thing is that you haven't read my book. You haven't even gone
Mm,
and bought that book, and you don't understand what I've written in it. That if they're in Kashmir, they'll use collard greens, but we're using spinach here.
mm,
Or some things like people can't find cockscomb flour or the extract or things like that.
mm,
That's fine, leave that out and use how the chili paste can be made. So in James Martin as well, I talked about chili paste, that they make chili paste, soak it with Kashmiri chilies in hot water and then blend it into a beautiful paste. And it is bright red, that you use in the cooking and the Rogan Josh and many other things. And I just showed it to that if you have a Kashmiri chili powder, you're running out of time, just add water that helps
mm.
to kind of get that beautiful color. So I think sometimes people on watching watching I don't know, on television at home, they haven't picked my book up. They don't understand that what I've written in the book. I think TV can be very perceived very differently. Of that 6 minutes you're filming and you're doing that. I think for British people, I think they've never, those who haven't traveled there have been really welcoming because they've been able to understand. I think people now travel a lot. With
Mm.
travel comes, like I said, knowledge, and they travel to India. They understand when they're traveling. Like food in Goa will be different, food in Punjab will be different, or Delhi, even if you go, or Mumbai, or Calcutta, or any South states will be different, or Gujarat, Rajasthan. Everything is different. I think people now travel. I think traveling has, I think, opened people's ideas. I think that was the whole point of writing this book, that when you come to, there are beautiful 80 recipes in that. And couple of the recipes are my recipes, but rest is people who've given those recipes or cooked with me and cooked for me and told me how to make it. And I cooked with them. So the only thing, what I found there, I only ate chicken once in somebody's house. Rest, they don't really eat chicken. So I needed to make sure how I can create this recipe for the British people, but or anybody in the wider audience, anywhere in the world. How can I take a whole roast chicken, and how can I then pick the spices that they use, blend that, and make it into a roast? So I think you have to be clever like that. I want to give something to the wider audience who eat a lot of chicken, then goat or mutton or meat or lamb or beef. How can I make it? I think that's where you have to be understanding, but you're not at the same time disgracing that somebody's culture, or disrespecting, not disrespecting somebody's culture. I'm not disrespecting. I'm so respectful. I think that's what the Sikh in me is really important, to respect people and their cultures. I think that is what the story of this book is about. It's just about respecting the people, telling their stories. If you open the first page, it says this book is for the people, by the people. It's their stories. I've never claimed these are mine. Where it's mine, I've written on the top. I've written who's given me the name of the people whose recipes are those. So I think that is very, very important, that coming back to acknowledging the people, because it's all them. It's for them. I hope people in Kashmir will one day be able to get this book. Yeah.
No, definitely. I think it's nice that you have acknowledged them as well in the book. So, if one day they do get to see it, they'll be like, oh, that's my name. Oh, and I sat down and I shared it. So
I know. I have even not forgotten my driver or the guide who was with me, with the people I was working with. So, you have to, because these guys are so knowledgeable. I still keep in touch with them. They'll send me photos. It's snowing there. You have to have that love. And then you have to have that hierarchy, what we have in India, the caste system. Then you, as a writer or as a chef, cannot have that. You cannot have that hierarchy system, because a driver is firstly a human being. That's his job. I'm a writer, and my job, but we both same. We're both equals. Who am I to judge anyone? So I think when you kind of have that in you, it helps. People see that. People can see that.
No, but I think it's lovely that you say, India does have that hierarchy caste system, which I'm not a fan of. But like you said, we're all connected. It doesn't matter what we do or what gender we are or whatever, our occupation is. We are all connected.
Because in India, what happens is, when you have a driver, you'll sit in a different table to what the other people. I would never do that. They will sit out with me and eat. I'm not differentiating my driver's going to eat somewhere else. No, he's going to eat with me.
Yeah.
So I think that's what people, when they were looking at me, found. How is she, firstly as a woman, and secondly,
good, you're a trailblazer. Definitely.
Well, you have
but I want to talk about, you're back on the Country File. And in some ways, for me, it's a very beautiful traditional food show format with a season of new videos, recipes, and articles, and packed with ideas to help you shop, eat sustainably. And now in this season, you're visiting inspirational children who are passionate foodies, championing local seasonal produce, which with each episode, you're immersed into a different city or region that combines culinary traditions and cultures. How did it feel being a host as opposed to being a guest chef?
So I think when the opportunity came, I've never presented a show before. I've always cooked on live TV or recorded TV or or radio, but I never been a presenter. So I think Jane Lermas is cannot be more thankful to her that she took that, because I did something with Countryfile last year. I cooked, it was collaborated with BBC Food, and I cooked 3 recipes for them in a farm in Bristol, just near Somerset in Bristol. So I think they must have liked me. So I think Jane came to me and said, "We would love you to do something." And to be honest, if people understand and know about me, I started I've lived in Southwest for 17 years now. I started teaching young kids in school. You have to process all the CRB check and all that is done in school. And then I started teaching and I did the gardening with them because my daughters went to that school. So I think if it's a circle of life, my first presenting job, I always wanted to do something with kids, and it came back and did that to me. I think it's so emotional, but it's also so I'm so proud and thankful and grateful. Every word's in the dictionary, I would say. But James did take I've never presented. Gavin, who's my producer director, Kitty, researcher, and Ricky, everyone on the team uplifted me because I've never presented a show and I'm dyslexic. If you give me a script, I lose the plot. You ask me questions, look at me. I can say to you anything. So I think I told Gavin, please don't give me the script, just tell me. So I think first when I was very nervous, and I think if you have a really good producer director, or cameraman, they can make you so comfortable, and the sound man, everybody on the team made me so comfortable, and also they wanted me to be there. I think it's forget about everything, how you're good about. It's wanting to be. People want you to be there. That's the when people want you to be there, you have a power within you that you can do this. If people think, oh, you don't want to be, you don't want to work with this person, or we don't want to, you have that anxiety, you have that on your shoulders. I think I can feel it. I don't know how I can feel it. When you're not wanted, I can feel it. But they wanted me. They wanted to uplift me, and getting this opportunity, Ready Steady Cook was different and made my career on TV as a BBC chef, which is amazing opportunity. Through that, I got Countryfile because last year I got BBC and Countryfile wanted me there. And because of that, I think it's something that Ready Steady Cook has changed so much for me, because and then working with these kids, understanding, and they are teaching me that where food is growing, how and why they want to do it, and then I don't know how I was so loving each, we're still filming it. It's just wonderful to be surrounded with kids who have so much knowledge. And what better show could I have asked to be on a segment on Countryfile where people religiously watch you or, watch the program. So I think I couldn't have asked for a better launch on TV.
No, but I think it's amazing. Like, I think it's like wonderful. It's like a ripple effect. Like you said, it started on Ready Steady Cook, and then it's kind of just manifested into something even more beautiful and something that you are like, your heart's in being with children and teaching children, learning from children. And I think that's just wonderful for you to have that.
You have to be, I think the camera cannot lie if you're not comfortable with children or anybody. I'll just pick up like that. I think, yes, you have to be just like what original you are. Is that. I think it's a team make you become that. And I'm so grateful to Jane to be able to giving that opportunity to be on.
Definitely. I'm a massive foodie and I love food. And, sometimes I feel like food taste is often the least important aspect of a mealtime for me, because it's the room, the mood, the company, and, the time of day. But for me, it's the conversation you're having. It makes everything heightened and fantastic. Is that an experience you share in sometimes when filming? Because it's all the little aspects that come, the little jigsaw puzzles pieces that come together, and it becomes something totally different.
Absolutely. I think like, going on the search of this journey and meeting the young cooks and growers is like, where, like this Sunday, we are doing something fish, I think, if I'm not correct, if I'm correct. So I think, even learning that, I've always had a thinking, oh, Devon or Cornwall or Scotland has the best produce of seafood. But when going to, this part, up north, and looking at all that wonderful seafood, then you think actually, you don't know anything about the parts, and you need to you can't just think that you know everything. And then meeting these young girls, and then how they've created these amazing things for me, which I don't think I can share much. But I just think that it is about when we travel together. I never sit on my own or say I'm going out and I'm going to
Yeah.
go and meet. I sit with the team. I listen to the team. I eat with them. I drink with them. I never go as a talent on a train. I'll say, no, I'll go with them. I'll go in the car or I'll
Yeah.
drive with them. So I think that as a team food, I think that comes as like, it's about sharing. Then we share about different cultures, and that's where you connect through food with so many different people.
Definitely. And I think it's a collective like love that you're having
Yes.
with them, and it makes everything better. So I want to go over something a bit funnier. Well, it's always true that people like negative, well, not funnier as in haha, like curiosity funny. The story of a terrible meal is always better of a mediocre one. And I've always thought that a terrible meal you always remember with such exquisite clarity because it's something that's embedded in you. Are you allowed to tell me about the worst dish in your life that you've ever eaten?
Terrible or good? Terrible.
Oh, let's try good terrible.
Sometimes I think my family doesn't love going out with me anymore because I I'm really grateful when people cook for me, right? Anybody who cooks for me, or if I'm going out and enjoying that, because sometimes I haven't met somebody for a year. I'm meeting that person, and through the pandemic, I haven't met such and certain kind of people, and I go and meet them. But sometimes you sit and think, oh, I could have made it better. This is so terrible. I've had a meal in London, and I really I don't want to take the name of the restaurant, and I know the person really well. I sometimes think he or she is an amazing chef. Sometimes I think what happens nowadays is when you see a menu card and there are so much description, this added on the side, and make it less complicated. Less complicated is so much better than complicating it. I think when you're complicating it, it's just that's when chefs like so many layers become like boom. But I can't even the person who had I don't know, I can't. I had it's the worst meal I would say I've had in America on my book tour in a place in America, and that person was nominated for awards. And when I ate the food, it was a can of tin of crab open, not fresh. And the person was charging so much money for that food. It was about $50 for that thing, sharing of two people, which is fine. I'm the person who never ever picks an eyebrow about food and how much it costs if it's amazing. That person it was so busy, and I ate. It was like I said, this is a tinned crab, not even fresh. How can you charge that much money for a tinned crab just layer on the top of the rice? And then me being me, and I said to the chef, "This is out of a tin, and how why aren't you using fresh?" Oh, we can't afford to use fresh. But then I said, you shouldn't put on the menu that it's fresh. So so I think that was the worst meal of my year. Was in, I won't even name the city. The people will know who I'm talking about. It was the worst meal of my year. If people tomorrow tells me, I would never name and shame anyone because I just think it's the livelihood. It was the worst meal I've ever had in my life, entire life.
Oh goodness. So my last question to you. If there was one dish you could eat for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Uh, I think it will be rice and roasted aubergine baigan bharta.
Mm.
Not rice, so it's dal, plain simple yellow dal. It can be any red lentils or yellow lentils. Just simple Punjabi tadka dal. A little bit of ghee on the top with
Oh,
roasted smoky aubergine, which is baigan bharta with a roti, and that's it. I can live my life with that. That will be my desert island. Um,
Get the island everyday meal. Yeah, I'm a
and
sucker for that, and I'm a sucker for like aubergine. Like I have to have at
yeah,
least once a week, both of them actually. But yeah, that's amazing. So, Romy, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on my podcast today. Thank you so much for joining me.
thank you for having me. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.